I'm Dan Miller, ready to call the blitz on this market.
And I'm Jules Sterling, keeping the peace and the partnerships when the data gets heavy.
Grab your seatbelts. Growl, Buck Reynolds here. Just checking the tire pressure and the common sense in the room.
This is Elena Rossi, here to manage the risk before it manages you.
Look, it's Monday, May 11th, 2026, and we are coming to you live from the ops room. And here's the play. It is a busy morning on the boards.
It really is. I mean, after we spent yesterday talking about that huge Puerto Verde private rail project in Eagle Pass, and, the super corridor growth, it feels like today is the reality check, right?
Well, yesterday we were talking about onion fields turning into semiconductor chips. Today, we're talking about the fuel prices that actually get those chips to the door.
Actually, Buck, it's more than just fuel. We're looking at a systemic restructuring of the labor pool and the tech stack. Yesterday was the vision. Today is the invoice.
Look, the bottom line, we've got a solid lineup today. It's not a quiet Monday, that's for sure. It's an action-packed episode where we're looking at the Amazonification of the entire logistics sector and, well, the return of some serious geopolitical volatility.
Here's the deal. We've got to start with the pump because my phone hasn't stopped buzzing since 5 a.m. with guys asking what the heck happened over the weekend. Now it's time for Diesel Dispatch, our Monday segment where we track the pulse of the fuel lanes and the macro drivers hitting your P&L.
And look, it's a rough one. The EIA numbers for this Monday, May 11th, they're hitting like a late hit out of bounds.
National retail average is $5.64 a gallon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, up nearly 29 cents in a single week. That's the largest sequential jump we've seen in 24 months. 7 days ago, we were looking at a cooling trend. And then, boom.
Look, here's why it's happening. The Hormuz premium isn't just a headline anymore. It's a systemic crisis. We're in week 10 of the Strait of Hormuz being effectively closed.
Exactly.
And, crude is climbing. It hit $104 in today's session. But the physical price for immediate delivery, I'm hearing reports closer to $150 because everyone is scrambling for non-Middle Eastern barrels.
It's a total distillate squeeze. U.S. inventories are at the lowest level since 2005. We're 11% below the 5-year average. Refineries are prioritizing jet fuel for the EU because they're desperate.
Well, is that why the EU changed their regs today? I saw they're allowing their airlines to use Jet A fuel now, the U.S. standard.
Actually, Jules, it is exactly why. They're building a transatlantic fuel bridge. But if I may, from a risk standpoint, that's a nightmare. Jet A has a higher freezing point. It's negative 40 degrees instead of negative 47. You put that on a long-haul flight through a cold air mass, and you are flirting with a catastrophe.
Look, the refinery margins are exploding. The crack spread is $70 to $100 a barrel. So even if crude settles, the fuel at the pump stays high because the molecule itself is scarce.
So for my shippers, if I'm sitting on a contract lane, am I just looking at my budget evaporating, right?
Look, Jules, if you aren't resetting your surcharges weekly, you're losing the game. Now we're moving from just in time to just in case. And carriers are starting to demand daily surcharge resets in some regions.
I'm seeing $7.36 in California today. If you're an owner-operator and you didn't have a cushion, well, here's the deal. You're parked. That's Diesel Dispatch for this week. Let's just hope next Monday the numbers have some mercy on us.
With those fuel costs, it's almost a relief to see some of the precision tech coming online, if it can actually help with the efficiency.
If only efficiency could pay the $5.64 at the pump. But I suppose we should talk about the Nagaro and Adverb partnership. They just signed a memorandum of understanding today.
Exactly.
It's a move toward digital twins and robotics. But what's interesting is they're focusing on the software integration, not just throwing a robot into a warehouse and hoping for the best.
Actually, Jules, the concern I have is the talent bottleneck. Randstad released their Work Monitor report this morning. 95% of leaders are optimistic about automation, but only 50% of the actual workforce feels prepared to work alongside it.
Look, it's like putting a freshman quarterback in a Super Bowl. If the guy doesn't know the playbook, the tech doesn't matter.
That's the truth. I mean, look at the electric forklift deployment Coney Cranes just did at Church Brothers Farms. Those EVER units in Salina, everyone is watching that to see if zero emission works in high-volume cold storage.
And Church Brothers is a massive account. It's a litmus test for the industry, right?
Precision over efficiency. It's the new mantra. But before we go any deeper into the tech stack, we should probably acknowledge the people keeping our tech stack running.
Look, the play here is strategy, and strategic logistics requires world-class engineering. This show is powered by the stack developed by Eric Christensen over at Neural Network Media.
He's really the architect behind the code that keeps us on the air, right? And we really appreciate the support from our listeners who help us keep this going.
Look, support the architect behind the code. Visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Neural Network Media. You get a free trial and access to our daily briefing PDF, which has all these stats we're citing.
It's the logistics Bible for your morning. If you're looking to stay ahead of the risk, it's where you start.
So, Dan, if we're talking about big tech in logistics, we have to talk about the $200 billion elephant in the room.
Look, Amazon. $200 billion capital expenditure confirmed yesterday, and here's the play. They are AWSing their entire logistics network.
Meaning they're just renting it out now?
Exactly. Amazon Supply Chain Services, it's now an external launch. They're renting their AI-driven middle mile and warehousing to companies like Procter & Gamble and 3M. And look, it sent FedEx and UPS shares into a total tailspin yesterday because Amazon is moving from a partner to a direct and tech-superior competitor in the 3PL space.
I mean, are they actually tech superior or just bigger?
Look, they're betting on AI infrastructure. They're calling it Logistics AWS. If they can optimize the lane better than a human broker, which they can, it's a game of chess where they've got 3 queens on the board.
It feels a bit cold, doesn't it? Right?
It's the implementation gap, Jules. 65% of fleets want AI-driven maintenance, but only 27% have actually deployed it. Amazon is simply closing the gap for them. But at what cost to the relationship?
My thing is, you still can't automate the driver. I mean, not yet.
Well, Kodiak AI might have a word about that, Buck.
Oh, the Roll Transport Partnership? It's official as of May 7th.
Exactly.
Kodiak is running autonomous freight operations for Roll on the Dallas to Houston corridor. 4 round trips a week.
Look, Roll is a top-tier carrier. They've got the ATA President's Award for Safety. If they're putting their name on a driverless truck, well, that says more than any tech blog.
Actually, the numbers are even more interesting. Kodiak reported a surprise net income of 10 cents a share for Q1.
They're making money?
Some are in the Permian Basin for Atlas Energy, fully driverless. No one in the cab. It's transitioning from testing to commercial execution.
Look, it's a 2-minute drill, and they're at the 10-yard line. They're targeting a full commercial launch for long-haul driverless for the second half of this year.
I mean, the thing is, I still want to know how they handle a steer tire blowout. I've had them. It takes a certain kind of muscle memory to keep that rig on the road. AI has logic, but does it have feel?
Well, Kodiak calls it physical AI. Maybe the sensors can feel the vibration before it happens, right?
Consistency leads to fewer claims, Buck. The data doesn't blink, it doesn't get tired, and it doesn't get distracted by a cell phone.
Look, we've also got a real-world mess in the regulatory lanes. Elena, you were looking at the FMSCA ELD purge?
2 more ELD devices removed from the approved list this week. But the bigger story is the CDL revocation. Approximately 28,000 CDLs were revoked in a multi-state sweep.
28,000? Just like that?
These were non-domiciled licenses. The U.S. Court of Appeals just rejected the effort to pause the rule. I mean, they are sidelining nearly 200,000 drivers across the entire board if this continues. The FMCSA isn't prioritizing the shortage. They're prioritizing the logistics Bible. If you don't have a legal domicile in the state of issuance, you're out. It's a massive sweep for security and compliance.
Look, it's a pincer move. You've got driver seats being vacated, and the equipment is failing too. Wabash National just got downgraded by Moody's for the 3rd time in a year.
I mean, that's just what we need. Trailers that no one can afford to build.
But I thought the backlog was actually okay.
Look, the backlog grew 19%. But earnings have evaporated because customers are placing orders and then deferring delivery. They're sitting on the sidelines because of interest rates and, well, the fuel prices we just talked about.
It's a wait-and-see market. But here's the deal. You can't wait and see your way out of a contract. If you need equipment to move freight, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
The K-shaped recovery. Amazon and Kodiak are on the upswing, while the asset-heavy manufacturers like Wabash are feeling the floor drop out.
It really feels like a turning point, you know? The human relationship versus the automated network, right?
Look, the handshakes still move the freight, but the machines are the ones keeping the score now.
Well, here's the deal for the fleet managers and owner-operators starting their week. The math has changed since Friday. Don't start your truck without checking your surcharge. And if you're looking to hire, well, check those CDLs twice because the FMCSA isn't playing games this summer. Watch the Texas corridors. That Kodiak run to Houston is the bellwether for the rest of the country.
Look, the play for shippers is simple. Audit your fuel program before Tuesday and watch the Amazon supply chain news. If they move into your lane, you're going to need a better strategy than just being the guy with the truck.
Precision over complacency. If your safety scores aren't perfect, you're going to be the first one sidelined in this capacity purge. Remember that good enough is the precursor to a catastrophe.
And keep talking to your partners. Transparency is the only thing that keeps the chain from breaking when the costs spike, right? We're all in this together, even if some of us are digital.
Look, we'll be back tomorrow to see if the EIA has any good news for us. Probably not, but we'll be here to call the play anyway.
Keep the shiny side up and keep your head on a swivel.
See you on the high road. Stay disciplined.